Marhaba sages, happy Friday. That is hello in Arabic. I am happy to come to you this afternoon to talk to you a little bit more about the wonderful lessons I learned in an Arabic neighborhood of my years of living in Nazareth, Israel. So I have my coffee that I just made, and my house smells amazing. My apartment smells amazing. It smells like cardamom and coffee in here. So I'm going to pour myself some coffee and tell you guys a little bit about my time living in the Middle East. So let me pour this coffee that is so wonderful and rich. And if you've ever had Arabic coffee, I'd love for you to drop a little note for me below. And I'm going to tell you a story about these two different coffee cups. So one of these is a coffee cup that mostly the guests would drink out of, and one of these is the everyday coffee cup. And I'm going to circle back to that because today my whole message is one of my favorite Arabic phrases. It's ask about the neighbor before you ask about the house. Asal an dejar qabla dar. And I wanted to share that with you today because it is really tremendously full circle for me as I come into this time of being almost 19 years back from the Middle East as of Monday, March 1st. And I have the best memories of that place. So as I share about my time drinking coffee and learning the ropes on how to live in a foreign culture, I wanted to tie that in about what that means for us as business owners as we ask about the neighbor before we ask about the house. And I think we can get to a place with our businesses where we're just kind of going for that sale and we're always so conscious of what's the next best thing I need to do to grow my business, when I'm going to say one of the next best things we can do to grow our business is grow our relationships. So this is what I learned from my wonderful neighbors. And, you know, as I think back on 19 years of leaving, you'll see in my Weekender, I've had an internet problem today, but I will put that up shortly, the Weekender. And the focus in there today is on, you know, neighbors, coffee, how to make Arabic coffee. There's a video in there. There's a picture of my very good friend and bestie from Nazareth, Rima, who I just had coffee with this morning on a video chat. But I want you to see just some of the things that what happens when we put the coffee on. We gather around and we remember one another and we talk to one another. And I think there are things that we can overlook about building our businesses and about what it means to do that by building relationships. So the thing that I'd like to share is this is the coffee cup, this wonderful little saucer. This generally would happen if you were a guest. You would sit in someone's formal living room and you'd have a more formal cup of coffee. And while they would welcome you the same, ahlan wa sahlan, they would say, yes, I do smell the coffee, Pat. And I hope you're smelling it too. They would welcome you, ahlan wa sahlan, come and drink this coffee. There is something different about going from that guest status to the everydayness of drinking coffee out of this kind of cup. I cannot tell you how many cups of coffee I've had, probably hundreds of cups of this coffee in my neighborhood in Nazareth. And the beauty of this is that kind of deepening of a relationship and, you know, getting familiar with the people that we're trying to serve. Why do you think I'm constantly talking about romance your tribe and really who is in your tribe and who is in your community? Because those people are going to resonate the most and you're going to be the person they're going to look to. When I think of being called a guest in Nazareth, to compare to being called Jaritna, our neighbor, that's how someone might greet me. Marhaba Jaritna, hello neighbor. They would welcome me in that way, using neighbor. That is how significant that is. And to know that I'm asking about the neighbor before I'm asking about the house is to say that the person is more important than the place, than the thing. Maya Angelou said, you know, people, they don't want to know, you know, what it is until they know how much you care. Like, it's all about caring. And I think in a time when we are in just in a place where we live in a virtual world, I don't know about you, but I'm desperate to sit across the table and drink a real coffee with someone in a real cafe, right? I think we crave that even more. We long for that even more, so that as we are doing these things that say to someone, you know, you're not just about the sale for me. I want to know about you. You know what? people are going to stop and pay attention to that, right? So when we take enough time to say, who are you? What are you dealing with? What are you struggling with? Tell me about you. The other day I asked you guys, where are you from? What kind of coffee do you drink, right? I'm just trying to get to know you better and trying to get the community to get to know one another better. We can be so much about the business that we forget about the relationships, and really it's more about the ROI, return on the relationship, than the ROI, return on the income or investment. The investment we want to make is deposits into the lives of others. I think of things with my neighbors and the countless cups of coffee, and them like there must have been agonized over me learning Arabic, and how thank God for this little book. If you're trying to learn Arabic, Yalla Nak Yarabi, this book is gold. Let's Speak Arabic. I learned so much in that book. But what they did is they gave me space and grace. They let me sit down and learn on them and learn with them. If they ask, well, how does she know Arabic? We taught her, they tell me, right? They tell everybody, we taught her, right? So that kind of sense of belonging was tremendous for me. And watching these women, you know, I think my internet's out today, right? So I think about the times in the neighborhood in Nazareth when the electricity would go out or the water would go out. And the guy's running up and down the street, they're going through the streets and they're saying in Arabic, muffled in this microphone, blah, 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 and I'm not understanding a word. And I'm like, what? And my neighbors would tell me, oh, your electricity's going to be off all day. Like they're telling me your water's going to get turned off tomorrow, right? Someone would come into the neighborhood selling garlic or bananas or pajamas, or it didn't matter what. All the moms were like, go tell your mother, go get your mother, go tell your mother, right? It was the Gulf War, Scud missiles flying over our heads, and our neighbors are knocking on the door, finding out, are we okay? When they should have been in a sealed room with a mask on their face, right? But they were there looking after us. So I want to encourage you that these are the things, these messages that I'm sharing with you about my lessons learned in the Arabic neighborhood. Why am I doing that? Because I want to remind us about community and the power of community and the power of belonging and growing your tribe and growing your following and really seeing people, not just, you know, the sale at the end or them seeing you, but you seeing them. I want to see you. I want to hear you. And learning about that is so critical, to go from just being the guest to Jaritna, our neighbor, right? And that place where we go from just drinking the coffee. Now this cup, no doubt, is prettier and it's fancier and we might sit in a fancy room, but I'm going to tell you what, there's nothing like being called to sit in the inner room, right? Come drink coffee with me like this every single day. And there is something about the deepening of that relationship that I will be grateful for my whole life. These people didn't have to welcome me like they did, right? But they did, and I will be grateful for all the lessons that they taught me. So I'm hoping these things resonate with you, to be looking at ways that you can serve, that you can give. Do you have some kind of knowledge? Could you share it? You won't lose anything in the process of that. I'm not telling us don't make money from our entrepreneurship. Absolutely, we need to. But I'm taking these lessons I learned in an Arabic neighborhood and I'm taking them down into my heart and into my entrepreneurship, which is the way I bring my gifts to the world. And I'm asking you to look at that too, to be our sister's keeper. We're better together. Look out for one another. Ask about the neighbor before you ask about the house. The people in front of us trump the things that we are trying to do. They supersede and precede us being able to do even deeper work, is when people know that we truly care. That know, like, and trust factor can deepen with every little breadcrumb of trust that's built, in every way that we foster and deepen those relationships. So today, as I wrap up, I want to just remind you the Weekender will be up. Jump in if you want to watch this really fun video on how to make Arabic coffee. There's a little recipe in there too, and a picture of my wonderful, wonderful friend, my lifelong friend Rima. And you'll see us with our finjans raised and toasting one another as I went to leave that neighborhood. So you can go and do that. One other thing I want to leave you with today. Today's episode of this is in memory of Mrs. Chaplin. So Mrs. Chaplin is my best friend from college. I went to Eastern College, and my best friend Mary Her mom passed this week, and one of my favorite memories of her mother is they came all the way to Israel to be with us in Nazareth and be there for our summer camp, which was just amazing. So I want to shout out to Mary's family and just tell you I'm thinking about you and great memories of the legacy your mom left. And another fun thing, her mom was so instrumental, Mrs. Chaplin was so instrumental in helping me collect books for what I thought was just a neighborhood library that later turned into the BTG school, the Bridging the Gap school, that lasted 17 years. And so I am so grateful for that as well. So thank you so much for being with me today. I cannot wait until I can bring you to my table and have Arabic coffee with you. We can drink it in these cups, fancy cups. I'll probably bring out these cups because I want you to know you're my neighbor, and I'm our neighbor, and I want us to feel like we belong to one another in this community. So hopefully these stories are helpful and encouraging to you. I am wrapping them up last Friday of the month, every month, and at the end of the year I'm going to wrap them all up in a book. I'll be celebrating my 20th anniversary back in America after all those years in Israel, and this will be basically my tribute to those wonderful, wonderful neighbors. If any of you are listening, I just want to thank you so much. The woman I am today is because you poured so much of yourselves into me, and I'm so grateful that I got to be your neighbor. One of the things that they said as we left, and you can watch this in my TEDx talk as well, the night we left to come back to the States, we all held hands and stood in the street and cried together and prayed together, and they said, how will we ever find neighbors like you again? And wow, what a message to our hearts. How would we ever find neighbors like them? And so this is where Wilmington actually became Nazareth for me. And that's a story for another time. But I look forward to seeing you again next Friday. You guys have a great weekend. I'm going to go drink my Arabic coffee, and I will talk to you next week. See you. Bye-bye.